Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Valoranting, where this week we're going to be talking about the T1 Showdown and everything else happening in the Valorant community. This week, I'm happy to be joined by Pansy, and once again, Velly joining us in from the green hell that he lives in. Definitely nothing covering up anything. No crime scene behind the green screen. Don't worry about it. But let's
Nope.
talk about how our weeks were. Velly, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I unwinded for a little bit because of a death in the family, but I'm back, full action, back in Valorant, back in Rainbow Six Siege, back in esports. I missed it, man. So I was able to clear my head, and I'm happy to be back on Valoranting.
Happy to hear it, my man. I gotta have the clear head. Pansy, how you feeling?
Oh, it's a wonderful time to be in esports. Never meet your heroes, never work with your heroes. It's been wonderful this week. Thank you for asking, Moses. No death in the family, so that's I guess a bonus.
Okay,
But yeah,
well,
no. Otherwise, I got to cast T1, which kept me occupied. So I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's been a strange week, a very strange week. I mean, what can you say? At the end of the day, I suppose it's just one step closer to us writing books about how to spell words that are in the title of the book that you wrote. Let's talk
Dude, I
about.
can spell esports however I want. I'm so freaking hyped. God damn.
Okay, let's not go down the rabbit hole too quick because we're gonna get in trouble. So let's talk a little bit about what's been going on in the Valorant community. Specifically, some of the developer updates that we saw. Anna Donnell was out showing us what's going on behind the scenes, specifically when it comes to new game modes. Let's hear it from her.
As for game modes, this is a place where we're actually accelerating development. Originally we had only planned to launch with the core bomb mode, but what we heard right out of the gate from all of you was that you were looking for a downtime mode, something shorter, and so we released Spike Rush, but that team is just getting started. And we're not really sure yet exactly when we're going to release modes, whether that's at the act level or the episode level, but what I can say is that you're likely to see a new one before the beginning of episode 2.
Good to hear. I hope that the only word that comes after that announcement is deathmatch. I would need some
Please.
deathmatch in my veins here. Like it's clearly the only other game mode that I'm not clearly. I mean, there's people out there who want to play like a Ram style. Spike Rush is cool and all that. But Pansy, where are the deathmatch at?
It needs to happen. It needs to happen quick. Actually, I say that. I don't mind it taking longer. It means I get a little bit more of an edge to kind of just, sit above on, just make sure my sense is the same in CS:GO, go play some deathmatch, come right back in, and I'm feeling A1. But no, yeah, deathmatch needs to happen. I understand that they're a little hesitant to do it, probably because they wanted to perfect what they were going to bring out first. I get that. And obviously you want one game mode to be your primary look to, but in this sort of game, you want casual players to be able to jump in for maybe just 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because again, I've been learning about a lot of other esports recently, Moses, through several Reddit threads. And basically, Sir Action Slacks made a wonderful discussion point that I never thought about with Dota. You're locked into that game for an hour. So when you get a shitty game, you're pissed, you're angry, you fucking hate your teammates and everyone else around you, right? So it's like, I get it. And it's the same in a way with Valorant. Yes, it's MR12, so it's a little less on the time, but you're locked in. It's nice to have something just to chill with, 30 minutes, jump in, jump out, 20 minutes, whatever. It's good for the scene.
Velly, I think we're kind of in agreement with the deathmatch requirement, but I mean, Pansy brings up a good point. Like, if you're coming out of a tilting match, the one thing you're going to be thinking about is like, oh, my aim was off, or things weren't dropping. I need to let off some steam. And what better game mode is there for that than deathmatch?
Easily. I was thinking about it. I was hoping she didn't say it. I need a 1v1 type map. Put me on a Shoot Mania type of map.
Oh yeah.
And let all of my frustration out against the noob on the other team on the other side of the board. And let me just go all out. I was actually talking to a friend. His name is Mono. I hope he's watching because he sucks at the game. And he swears he's better than me, right? So I told him, I said, put your money where your mouth is. Let's play 1v1, $20, $200, whatever you want. Let's put it on the line. And he said, how are we going to do that? And I said, good point. We need something like that. Free for all, I really don't care about that. Team deathmatch or a 1v1 type map or game mode, that's what Valorant needs. And I feel like they need to do it fast because the game came out incomplete. We still only have like one map and we need to expand more on it.
You know, something's coming to my mind right now, and you know, hear me out. This is a revolutionary concept. Imagine if we had, like, let's say, an expanded Valorant map, like a slightly larger one. Okay, maybe we had like
Okay.
maybe like 25, 35 players in there, and then as time goes on, there's like some sort
No.
of, you know, some
No.
sort of force field that like slowly makes the map smaller and smaller, forcing people into I'm not sure what you would call this mode, but you maybe like force them closer and closer together so engagements are forced, and then eventually whoever wins the match,
Ugh.
the royal, whatever you want to call it.
Wait, no,
hate you
y'all
so
take
You know,
that
much.
you
PUBG
got to keep up with the
stuff outta
times
here.
here, Valorant. Everyone's gotten BR modes. You know, you gotta put it together. I'm just joking, but I mean, like, of course, I think deathmatch is my first choice, but Pansy, what do you got?
Also, I honestly, when you said 1v1, I'm thinking about other game modes that are pretty good. I mean, you know, if you look at CSGO's community side of things that they do, there's also like retake maps. So basically, imagine you cut just a slice of a map, let's say A-long on any map you want, imagine it, and the rest of the map doesn't exist. So you only have A-long and short, maybe, and then you have the spike side itself, and you play retakes, right? You get the spike down, and obviously there's another team
Yeah.
defending it. It's quick, fast-paced. It's honestly really good for teams to get into the habit of learning these maps in specific areas. And it shouldn't be as like, you know, you're locked in, there's a rank for it. No, just let it be like you can join in quick, just get a couple of goes on it. It gets you warmed up, right? Maybe something like that could be really good fun. I think that's something that CSGO hasn't implemented in its own game, but you could definitely do this in Valorant, like a quick fun game mode, similar to how they have, you know, Spike Rush. I kind of thought Spike Rush was gonna be a retake mode. I was so excited by the prospect of that. I was like, damn, that's really smart that they've included this, but never really happened in the end. But yeah, I think that could be a really nice switch up if they did take Spike Rush into that. You know, again, you get your full buy, maybe not an AWP or whatever, but you get your rifles and you play it out. I think that could be a really worthwhile and valuable thing. But yeah, 1v1s would be great too. I think those would be fantastic.
One more thing,
I think
Moses?
that. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. How many times do we get on the game and we don't have a 5-stack and we get annoyed because we don't want to play with terrible randoms, right? Have like a duo mode as well, like a wingman type
Yeah,
of
the
mode, like
queues-
you and a
yeah,
buddy
the-
on a
yeah.
small map.
Mhm.
Be different. Don't try to like reinvent the same wheel over and over
Yeah.
again. Be different. Add something new. Because I would rather play with a friend for hours and just, you know, slap people left and right than, you know, playing unranked with, you know, Billy Bob 123 and Silly Sniper. You know?
I hear you. I think there's I would like to see the game modes that they add. And this is biased, but I would like to see this be like Lauren said, like esports related, like individual modes, like retake, that kind of thing. Let's say like a 3v5, like 2-man down type of thing where you have to try and, you know, win. Like there's all sorts of stuff you can kind of kick around, but let's hear a little bit more from Anna Donlan. She's talking a little bit about toxicity and the community. Let's hear from her again.
Real quick before I go, there are players out there who are determined to make the game miserable for everybody. I feel like we have a pretty decent handle on the cheaters, though that will be an ongoing battle. But what we're doing less well is in disruptive behavior. I made a huge commitment here at launch, and I mean it. I have funded an entire team of humans to focus on nothing else, and you'll see their work rolling out over the coming months. But we could really use your help. Like any system, get stronger. So please use our reporting tools and get us that data so we can make those systems even stronger than they are today. We're working on a way to let you know when your reports actually have an action taken on them, but in the meantime, please know we are actively restricting and banning players based on those reports. So please keep reporting those people so we can make the game a healthier place for everybody. All right.
So on that topic, I think we can all agree: don't be an asshole. That's it. Don't be a dick to your teammates. Don't be toxic. Don't be saying shitty stuff. Let's try and make the internet a better place. I hope that people are getting banned and that Riot has it in hand and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys have any additional thoughts on this particular topic, but Pansy or Velly, let's see what you got to say.
Okay, I'm not a bad guy. Okay, I'm not a bad guy. I swear to God, I'm not. But we've all been there before. We play a game, and you know we're 16-10, and we're losing 1-5, right? And our teammate, and you have Silly Sniper going 0-13, and whenever I've been in situations where I would be like, "Hey, Silly Sniper, you know, how about you not buy that op? How about you buy this and you go this area? You know, let me help you out." He was like, shut the fuck up. I know how to play the game. I like toxicity and all that stuff. I get it, but also Man, my worst experience with some of the worst players that's ever touched Valorant. So I've always been indifferent to that type of stuff when it comes to toxicity online. I get it. It happens, especially to women and people of color. But goddamn, bad players make the game a way less experience as well, in my opinion.
Is this going to be like the don't be poor thing? Is this like don't be bad?
Just don't be bad. No. Like, there has to be something. Like, I feel like if someone reports that someone is toxic on your team, like, it should send a replay to Riot. So Riot can look and say, oh, this guy was a shitter. So, yeah, he deserved Velly to call him, you know, like shitty after Yes. Yes. That's one thing I've been waiting for a game to do. But other than that, man, I'm really glad that Riot hired a group of humans to overlook this. It's very touching.
They're in a basement somewhere. You know, I remember it reminds me of that documentary where like they were talking about the moderators on social media who just see horrible shit all day long. Imagine just having to sit there and just like read report after report after report of like toxic behavior. I imagine that would probably turn you into some sort of monster over time. They probably have to cycle those people out back into the daylight now and again. Pansy, any thoughts on the toxicity stuff?
I mean, just get the fuck rid of it. The thing is, right, there's always that, like, counter-argument people bring up, like, oh, it's just banter, you know, it's, you know, oh, you wouldn't have lost a minute in the old COD lobby. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Neither would have you. Yeah. You're literally 14, bro. Like, you weren't in the COD lobbies. Your mom didn't buy you the game. Like, fuck off. Yeah. Like, it drives me fucking wild, this shit. Like, I mean, I literally grew up playing... It really is. I grew up playing, like, COD 4. You know what I mean? Like, in these shitty rat-ass games filled with, like, absolutely sweaty little rats. I mean, I played, like, Enemy Territory and Quake. Like, Quake, the whole game was you either shit on someone or you literally just get dumpster babied for, like, 10 minutes. Like, it was awful. And then you get some absolute asshole, like, giving you shit at the same time. Like, it felt bad. Did it make me play better? Probably not. I just kept doing it. I don't know what was wrong with me. It was some sort of problem. But the point is, like, this isn't it's not those days anymore. We get better, you know what I mean? And the problem is, like, I see my friends, like, getting, like, it's not just fun banter. It's not just like, you're fucking shitty, dude. It's not like the fun shit anymore that's creative and, you know, a little bit bemusing. It's just straight up harassment. It's like, all right, why don't you fuck off? You know what I mean? Like, that shit can go away. You can't
use previous shitty behavior. You can't use previous shittier behavior to, like, to justify current somewhat less shitty behavior. And the only reason it's not it's not as bad as it was is because of all the steps that have been taken to make it better, like the reporting systems and all the other stuff. Like, all the real bad people are out of there. So, I mean, or in COD 2 lobbies still, or Modern Warfare 2 lobbies still. We have one more little bit from Anna on some agent updates, which is an interesting point of discussion. Let's hear that again.
Episodes are meant to last about 6 months, with acts lasting about 2 months each, so 3 acts per episode. We're going to ask for a little flexibility here because we need to navigate around things like holidays and such, but that's pretty much the cadence that we're targeting. Agents will release at the beginning of an act, so if your math skills are awesome, you've figured out that we're targeting about 6 agents a year. This is another place where we're going to need a little flexibility because we really need to follow your cues here. How many agents are too many? How many are too few? But right now, 6 is the sweet spot, so 6 is what we're targeting.
6 new agents a year. My only concern is the same thing that I think we've all kind of thought about, and that's the direct correlation to Overwatch and how difficult it was for them to balance the game, considering how often they were adding new agents. I don't think Valorant will have the same issues, considering how much gunplay is relied on over things like utility, but that can change over time, considering the different types of agents that might come in. Pansy, is there any concern for you with 6 agents a year, or the fact that we're already staring down the barrel of our second new agent coming in within the next little while?
Not really. Honestly, the thing is, I think people just keep thinking, oh, it's going to be another raise. It's going to be something that's going to have a rocket launcher that's going to kill me. And that's a fair enough worry. If that is the case, then yeah, that's just shitty game development. But they haven't really done that yet, if I'm honest. I mean, raise is not OP. Like, that's it. And you know what? I'm not going to really doubt someone like Riot's ability to make a game, if I'm honest. And if their agents are good enough, it should feel fine. I mean, again, it's like every time a new agent comes out, oh, they're OP, they're broken, and then, well, maybe they're OP and broken at your rank, but at the top end of the game, how do they fit in? They're not that relevant. I mean, like, everyone was shitting themselves about her for like a week, and then everyone went, oh, she's actually not that viable. Oh, her Lear's kind of good, but the rest, nah. You know, I'd rather pick something else. I think a lot could be done, and I'm waiting to see what they do here. I think there's a lot of flexibility that people are kind of missing out on. So again, I'm not that worried. If it starts going off track, I'm sure the community will keep them humble anyway. It's not like the FPS scene lets people get away with anything at any singular point. So I'm not that fussed. I think if they slow down, they slow down. I mean, she even literally said, like, hey, we may not 100% stick to this. This is just the outline. But yeah, I'm not that fussed. I think it should be fine.
I kind of hope that over time, considering the esports meta right now, where like Sage is a must pick in a lot of different scenarios, and you know, the Brimstone Omen stuff is always being discussed, that new agents eventually disrupt the current meta to a point where there's alternatives to the same 5 agents that you might see on the more regular basis. Velly, do you think that the esports side of the game should be fearful of new agents or welcoming of new agents?
I'd be fucking spooked. Like, honestly, like, to be completely honest, 6 new ops a year, I feel like she said it was a sweet spot. I was hoping that was like her max and not her minimum. So bringing in 6 new people, I mean, you take a look at all the agents that are available right now. You have a lot of fraggers. You don't really have too many trap operators. You don't really have a lot of trap operators at all, right? Yeah, the meta's going to change a lot, but it's video games. Video games do that. I just hope that they just don't go all willy-nilly with the agents. I don't want to see Valorant turn into a game where you bring in all of these new characters, and when you bring them all together, they're just so fucking overwhelming. I hope they don't have that type of power pull with these new agents that are coming in. I see it in way too many games. If it happens to Valorant, it's going to be very fucking hard to reverse. So I hope they're careful.
I think so. I think so too. I mean, I guess the only thing that gives me pause to the concern aspect is we didn't see Reyna at all over the last weekend. So this is an agent that's been
why
out
do you
for
need
a
Reyna?
don't need
because
her.
Flash is the
But,
most
like-
OP thing in the game. No. This is
Exactly.
bullshit. But Reyna is valuable, but is she as valuable as Breach and Phoenix? Probably not. Right? Like again,
Right.
it's that divide, right? I think comps right now are going to go through a huge change, especially in NA, and I'll explain that more in detail when we get to the T1 tournament. I think people have been running the most like comfort pick style compositions that they think are OP, and then they're getting fisted by Wardell with an AWP because they've never flashed him off an angle once. I mean, the problem is that the comp you're running is meant to counter that, and they go, well, it's the game's broken. I don't have flashes like I have in Counter-Strike. No shit, Sherlock. Go get another agent that has a flash. So again, I will break that down in more detail, but I think compositions need to move away from technically this is fine, but then they also get absolutely shit on by every single AWPer and they blame the game, right? It's like the actual compositions are there for you to pick, you're just unwilling to do it, and then you'll blame the game. So I think agent meta right now is not necessarily stagnant, but it's starting to be adjusted. People are starting to go, okay, can we drop this Sage? Can we drop this, you know, Reyna? Like, what can we get rid of to allow us the chance to still have utility on these side hits? Because, okay, this is like every FPS game. It starts off being the super puggy game. Everyone's just an aim star. Everyone's just running in, trading effectively, fundamentals, basics. And then you'll get that one team that goes, I'm going to show you how to actually hit a site. I'm going to show you how to actually use your utility that you seem to fucking ignore. And then they just smash, right? Like, it happens in every game. And right now, we're not there yet, especially in NA. And that's no discredit to any of them because they're great players. But I'm pretty sure you ask any of them, are you playing the same amount of utility that you would in a traditional every day of the week CS game? No way. You're good at your individual character. Sure, your agent work is great, but in the bigger collective, no way. So I don't mind, as I said, coming back to topic, more agents is fine as long as people are willing to look at what you can do with them. And they fit into a meta that isn't just going to switch everything up, right? I don't want to see, like, you know, a fucking tank come out or maybe, you know, weird shit. I don't want weird shit. Let me still, like, have the guns being the main point of interest.
I agree. I think that as time goes on and agents get added, that the different combinations will shift. And I think that's what's going to keep things interesting. I don't want to watch like the Cypher cams are interesting right now because there's, you know, you don't know everything about the agent. Omen smokes, Brimstone smokes, all that stuff is really nice. But what I would like to see is something a little bit more action based, like a Reyna Breach kind of combination where you have a ton of flashes going on everywhere. Really, I want to see these guys have the most tools available to make the game as interesting as possible. And as more agents get added, I imagine we'll head eventually to what will become like a pick ban system or something like that, where you can X-nay certain agents off the mat or off the other team if they have a strong setup and you want to mess with it a little bit. it'll make for a little bit more interesting stuff. But really, I'm not a game balancer. This is up to Riot to determine, and ultimately the community should really be listened to as well. And a lot should be taken from the feedback that is garnered through testing phases and that sort of thing. But let's move on a little bit. It's time to talk esports, or at least for now, roster moves. Let's talk about some of the newest moves in Valorant esports. The first one is the Vodafone Giants announcing their new team. I don't know anybody here. I'm not sure if anyone's any different, but I think this is the European team. And you know, it's not to shit talk, but I mean the best part about these new team signings is you get to learn about these players once you start to see them. So Pansy, if you know anything about these guys, why don't you let me know?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely got on my radar through Counter-Strike, but I did a couple of, like, one-off Spanish events because DreamHack were like, hey, do you want to go to Spain and see the sunlight and look at my complexion? I was like, wow, what an opportunity. Went out there and I got to see some of the, you know, Spanish teams play, and they're very good. And I love their play style. The Spanish team is super aggressive. They've got some real flair to it. So it's weirdly almost, you know, cultural appropriation when I'm saying it, but I promise you it's actually kind of right. It's like they have this like crazy flair to the game, and you got to see a little bit of that with Fit when he was playing with, it was with Mixwell in which tournament was it recently? It was the G2 Invitational, and he was fantastic, and I hadn't heard of him before. I've known Don Q before from Counter-Strike, but Fit had been playing in similar teams, and they are good. Like, Fit was the standout player to me from a group of people that I knew, and then there was Fit. And I was like, wow, who's this guy? Why is he such a, you know, a diligent player that I've not heard of, who is slotted into this roster incredibly well with Mixwell? So I think it's an interesting roster. I don't think it's going to change the entire landscape, but I think it's going to be one of the contenders that probably people will sleep on because they don't see them in the invitationals or, like, you know, the kind of Twitch rival style things.
Right.
But when you get one of those bigger open bracket tournaments where you want, you know, the best of the best, they could do well. So I think they're a team to keep your eyes on for the future. If Fit is anything to go by, I haven't seen the others yet in this game, but I mean, they've got a really solid background to like run up from. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. They're a very diligent side, and Fit is certainly a standout. So if you get to see them in a tournament, I'll definitely try and catch their games and see how they look as a collective.
Absolutely. So can we pull that graphic up again really quick for the Vodafone Giants? And now I don't mean to go all Twitch chat on you, but are we sure that this is five different people? I mean,
they're all pretty handsome too. Can we appreciate this?
This looks like it looks like a police sketch of like what one person might look like in disguise 4 different times. You know what I mean? And
they're handsome dudes. I'm fine with this.
The guy on the right looks a lot prettier than the others, so I will say that.
Yeah.
Look, they're hitting all the categories. You need the pretty boy, you need the kind of gruff guy with the beard. You know, you gotta hit all those categories.
Yeah, Don looks like he will, you know, he'd fight for you at a bar. You know, they look alike, but they have different personalities. I like it.
Yeah. Shout out to the strong, handsome Spanish genes out there. So let's move on to C9. They did pick up Relics. This was, I imagine, probably the most, I'm not going to say expected pickup, but this was a guy that alongside Tens has been kind of carrying their team. And by carrying, I mean, they've been playing well together and they both put up stats, but unfortunately C9 as a team is just, they need more time in the test tube, gestation period, whatever it is, because they are just not ready for prime time right now. I think the T1 tournament kind of showed that. You cannot expect Tens and Relics to carry your team. And obviously, it was a stacked tournament, difficult to win, all that stuff. But C9 needs to get their roster together and get these guys in the practice chamber immediately. Velly, any thoughts on Relics or C9 and where they're at right now?
I don't have any criticism. You know, yeah, they weren't ready for the T1 tournament, but really a lot of people weren't because this game is still young and this game is still incomplete. The competitive nature of this game hasn't even been 50% of what we're to expect, in my personal opinion. You take a look at TSM. You have a Wardell. You have an Opper that dominates the scene, right? Why not pick up another Opper and just roll with him? See if he's going to get better. I feel like Relics is going to be that guy. He hasn't had the brightest Counter-Strike career from what I do know in my research, but from what I've heard, he has good aim and he can make plays. The question is, can he really stand up to be one of the best out there to battle against the likes of Wardell and, you know, the others on T1, Immortals, and the rest of them? Well, only time will tell. But no rush at the end of the day.
Well, you got to make the right choices with your roster, but ultimately the scene is moving forward. You know, TSM is not going to get worse over time. They're only going to get better because they're practicing, they're playing.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, C9 needs to, if they want to be relevant, and as a big organization in North America, you know, C9 wants that. They need to pick it up. Pansy, thoughts?
Yeah, I dared to criticize some of their approaches to the game. I even went as far to call them Tens and Friends because that was their previous name. Because literally, the Tens fans, the Cloud9 fans, come out in droves to protect them, and it's like, God, you know, you gotta also be realistic here. I mean, no, they are definitely not performing to par, but also as much as we, the community, and you know, part of, you know, the esports scene can give them a bit of time. We're like, hey, you know, it does take time to get better, and you got to get that right roster. I don't know if the organization Cloud9 is going to be as nice. I don't know if they're going to be as kind. You know what I mean? Like, how long are they going to give Tens to find a roster that works? Because we're already seeing Sentinels putting up some numbers. We're starting to see the other teams starting to look a bit more consistent, finding some form here. You know, how long are they going to give them? That's what I'm interested in. And, you know, it may be, hey, you get 6 months. Cool. All right, we can work on this. Or, hey, 3 months. We just need to see something. Well,
no
you know,
way
for me,
6 months. Not a chance.
Of course not. Of course not. I'm telling the Cloud9 fans a lie, so they stop shitting on me for telling them that their team's underperforming. But the point is that there will be a point where Cloud9 is going to go, hey, okay, we gotta find some form here. If locking in Relics is the right mood for them, then good. We just need to see a little bit more. And again, they had a hard game or two through the 100 Thieves tournament, and every other tournament out there, a T1 tournament. I mean, the problem is I haven't seen that big turn up for them. I've seen Tens be a big turn up, but not the rest of the team. I haven't seen that overall, okay, here's the sign of life. Once I see that, fair enough, crack on. I don't care if you lose or not. I mean, I saw more life out of the team with Rob Wiz. Like, I can't even remember what their name was. Like, I don't know what the team's name was, but they were running like these crazy strats. Dude, I love Rob Wiz so much. You have no idea. I mean, the man's a legend, but they were being like, fuck yeah, dude. You gotta back the boy. But no, I mean, they were being like super creative. They were approaching the game like I hadn't seen before. They'd, you know, thrown some really unique takes on the, you know, economy. I'm like, hey, okay, that's cool. That's enough to kind of walk away with and going, oh, you're grinding, nice. For the Cloud9 team, I haven't seen enough of that yet. But obviously, I know that Tens is a big talent. I mean, how long until Cloud9 goes, well, maybe we can sell him for a fair price here, and then just pick up a whole roster, you know? Who knows?
And C9 turns players over left, right, and center. You've seen, especially through their Counter-Strike teams and that stuff, they are not shy with just dumping rosters after random amounts of time and stuff like that. But we have to move on. Let's talk about Faze. Corey and Jason R being announced for the Faze clan. So the first one being Corey, and for Faze is a team that we didn't see Jason R in the T1 tournament over the weekend. They were playing as a mixed team. Let's bring up the Jason R stuff here real quick too, so we can say thanks to Jason R. I'm not sure if we'll get to this a little bit later on when we talk about the T1 tournament, but the roster they fielded for the T1 Invitational was essentially a mixed team and Corey. But they were a bright spot. We'll pause on that discussion for later. But again, Faze in the early stages, and I think personally, considering the performance of Corey in the T1 tournament, Velly, that Faze has got a lot of quite a bright future, I should say, in the Valorant scene.
Corey is the definition of a motherfucking gamer. So you got people out there when they go game to game, and they have that natural skill. Corey's a badass. Okay, so you guys can judge me if you want. I'm a fan of Overwatch. Okay, I like Overwatch. Corey played for the Washington Justice, and something that was extremely notable about his entire career is that he took one of the worst teams in the entire league and they didn't beat the shit, but they beat the Vancouver Titans, who were just fantastic, right? He's a DPS player. He's a fragger. He's a slayer. Great game sense. He's patient. He knows how to read plays and adjust the pace. I feel like Corey, with time, is going to be great. And I'm starting to love, and we're going to talk about it next too, seeing the different play styles that these people are bringing from these other games that they come from, and seeing how it affects not only the meta, but the scene as a whole. So Corey, I feel like he's going to be a star. I like him. I followed him.
I think that the Overwatch players are going to be the ones driving innovation in certain like utility usage and stuff like that, because they're not thinking about the game like CS players. We saw it a bit from Sinatra when he was playing with the Ares or whatever in the garage window. It's like,
crazy.
It's just little things like that you never know. Maybe that's the shit that works. You know,
I mean,
it's one of those things
couples
that
with Sova.
just don't test. Go on, Pansy.
Yeah, I mean, he coupled it with Sova, right? So he literally gets a free wall hack, shows him the outline, and he can spam through most walls. It's really nice, like little kind of ingenious pieces that I think, you know, he's obviously a champion of. But you're right, a lot of Overwatch players are taking a lot of the steps in the right direction that CS players will kind of, you know, again, I would prefer to have a Counter-Strike player to be on a teammate with, you know, on a team with, just because they have those collective skills. But just, you know, that dash of Overwatch, that one player who can just go, who doesn't see the game in the same way that CS players do and can be a little bit, you know, creative, is a really nice concept. I think seeing what he can find down the line is going to be exciting. And I mean, Sinatra performed pretty well as well, so it's all good signs for them.
Sentinels was great, and like I said, I really hope to see some of these Overwatch guys kind of shifting things a little bit and having the CS players think on their toes. And the last signing that I believe was the only team that announced the full roster all at the same time was 100 Thieves, and we are very lucky to have someone from 100 Thieves joining us. Valliate, are you there, my friend? And welcome. I hope everything's working there for you.
Hey, yeah. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Hello?
So for those of you who, yes, yeah, I can hear you. So there's a bit of latency on the vmix, so you might hear me a little bit late. But as far as big signings are concerned, I don't think there's been a bigger one to date than 100 Thieves picking up the former High Ground roster. Sans one player, but we'll get to that in just a minute. First of all, Valliate, a big congratulations. Obviously, we know Valliate from the PUBG scene, and many of the other guys that joined the team as well. Your boy Dre, Pride, Hiko. These are all names you've seen in the past, and of course, shout out to Venerated, the IGL, who's been a bright spot on the team as well. Valliate, let's just talk a little bit about what it means for you specifically to, let's be honest, escape the dark vortex that was PUBG esports and move on to a new exciting chapter in 100 Thieves.
Well, first off, thanks for the introduction, and I appreciate it. I mean, it's huge. Obviously, we won't touch on some of that statement, but I think the biggest thing is it's nice to actually switch games, just because it's a change of pace. Like, when I first started competing in PC gaming, obviously battle royales really weren't the hype and the big thing. But I started with like pretty much FPS games, like, you know, Halo, then went to like Counter-Strike for a little bit, played Overwatch for a bit, then went to like PUBG. But being able to switch games, feel comfortable, and transfer your skill into another game and play at the top is really nice. It feels good. It's reassuring, and obviously it brings our confidence to another level, being able to switch, especially since people are like PUBG players, low, because obviously PUBG is like not known as like when people look at it, they don't look at it as the most mechanical game, because it's more of like cerebral, because there's a lot of like thinking and like 3D chess in the game. So whenever you translate to a game that's at the base of it core, it's pretty much pure mechanics.
Yeah,
So,
and I
it's nice.
think, and I mean, Pansy and I would be the first people to say that PUBG is an extremely mechanical game and requires a lot of mechanical skill. But on top of that, you need to have a brain that's running at about 1,000 horsepower trying to figure everything out. And I guess to look at the people you signed with, 100 Thieves, there was always this rumor in the PUBG scene that 100 Thieves was looking at a team and this and that. 100 Thieves to me is probably one of the hottest properties slash organizations in all of esports. They've definitely got the cool factor going for them. So as far as organizations you could have asked for, I can't imagine that 100 Thieves was too far from your number one choice.
Yeah, 100 Thieves was definitely our number one choice. I mean, there's only like, I would say like 3 orgs at the moment, especially the ones that are entering NA, that even come close. So they were definitely top of the list, especially just because, I mean, we're fans of the org. A lot of us watch their content. We know the names. The names are notable. Their sponsors are cool. And obviously the backing they give all their teams is incredible. So, and also something I want to touch on as far as, like you said, I mean, PUBG requires heavily, like an insane amount of mechanical skills. So I don't want to dump on that. But when people watch it, they don't realize that. So
Yeah,
obviously we get the bad end of the stick, but the mechanical skill in PUBG is actually like insane.
Velly.
Yeah, 100 Thieves is the top.
I have a question because I was a big fan of PUBG. Do you think that what you guys can bring to the table compared to what, and everyone thinks CS players are going to run the scene, right? These tier 2, tier 3, a lot of these tier 1 guys are coming in. Do you think that your strategic placement and utility use and just positioning and map awareness might give you guys an advantage? If not, what will it be to make you and the rest of your people stand out?
So obviously, I mean, they're drastically different games. Obviously, there's some correlations with FPS games, and I think the team play in PUBG is, I would say, at a point even higher than like 5v5 tactical shooters, because there's so much stuff you have to worry about, so much comms that you have to think about, that the team cohesion and coordination has to be on another level. Not to say that this one isn't easy at all, because they all have their different things. Like, obviously, like when taking a site, like trading properly and like peeking angles properly and making sure people aren't watching the same thing, a lot of that in chaos is very hard. But I think the biggest advantage we have, honestly, compared to CS players, which, I mean, CS players are going to have the highest advantage at the beginning of the game because it's so similar. But I think the biggest advantage we have is, honestly, a lot of these CS players who have been playing the game for so long are going to be stuck in their ways. Like, and that's just my opinion. I don't want to, like, that's just my personal opinion. I think they're going to develop, they're going to have habits from CSGO that they're going to bring into this game, and they're going to be stuck in ways about this is how you play the game, this is their mindset, and it's a completely different game. And we've seen it already. Like, whenever we compete against these top teams in scrims and stuff, we see tendencies. And obviously, there's a lot of amazing things that CS players bring into the game. But whenever you're introduced to a new game that's completely different with utilities, like the utilities compete different and just the meta is different, you need to have a fresh mind and open mind. And just from what I've seen so far, a lot of the CS players, I guess, could be stuck in that regard. Not saying they won't transition, but I think we have more of an open mind in that regard.
You know, Valliate, I hope that the one thing that we can learn and that we saw a little bit from Wardell is, you know, I want to see some of that edge, man. You can come out here and say that these CS players are old and washed and they're stuck in their ways, and, you know, you're never going to see anything from them. That's basically what Valliate's here saying, is basically all these CS players are trash and that PUBG is clearly 100 Thieves is going to be.
Hey, the CS players shit on us, you know? They got to get something back. That's nonstop.
So I want to talk a little bit about Vegas. Now, obviously, I'm not going to call it a touchy subject, but I want to say, you know, it was obviously, I understand both sides. So for those of you who don't know, there was a conflict, essentially, that Hiko and Vegas played the same role, and Hiko already being on the roster and that kind of thing was the reason why Vegas was not picked up. Can you talk a little bit about Vegas as a player? What did he bring to the table, and what can other teams be looking at if they're looking at a player like Vegas?
Yeah, so first off, I just want to say it because it's kind of weird in a sense of, like, obviously, if we remove a player and now we're telling a team, pick up the player we removed, it's very, like, at forefront, it's like, okay, this is bias. You're trying to get your friend on the team. But legit, like, no BS involved. Our plan was not to remove a player, obviously. But I would not be playing with a player on a team that I did not feel comfortable competing at the highest level with. So I would have never played with Vegas, and we would have never played with Vegas if he wasn't at the highest level. As far as everything goes, if you look at all the top orgs right now, like, you have, obviously, 100 Thieves had Hiko, you had G2 as Mixwell, Faze had Corey. A lot of these teams are picking up star players and building around those rosters. So if we were ever to go to a top team, like literally a top org, we would have to make that decision. So we looked at other options as well, but I mean, 100 Thieves is best in the market, and every other option required that. And he's a very talented player. Like, he's a young gun. Even in PUBG, he was known as one of the top players. He was just a little too young to compete. He learns fast. He works great in a team environment. He's a good personality. He doesn't have like a ego or big head. Like, he doesn't clash with people very well. So I think he's a very talented player. It just so happened that as far as like role, talent pool, agent pool and all that stuff aligned where Hiko would be the one replacing him. But I mean, obviously Hiko's a very talented player. Like, it's not like, it's not like, oh, like, this doesn't work out. Like, everyone that looks at Hiko, he's in the same player, and on the background, whenever we scrim with him, I mean, the vibes are really good. It doesn't seem like he has any ego. Like, the team works well. We joke around. Like, we're already meshing, and we haven't really been playing that long. So I'm excited for the future in that. But Vegas, there's no doubt he's going to be on the top team.
Absolutely. Pansy or Velly, I don't want to keep asking all the questions. You guys got anything for Valliate?
Yeah, I've got a little bit, but I'll just one. You know, what's Hiko's input been like with you guys? Because I mean, obviously, you being like a 5-lock before this, has he been kind of like quieter coming into this to kind of letting you guys play it out and him try and slot it into your play style, or have you has he kind of maybe been a bit more vocal? I mean, you know, Hiko's known as one of the better IGLs, like a really good mind to the game, but has he kind of slotted in with you? Like, how's the kind of like chemistry within the team going when it comes to how you're approaching the game?
So obviously, I mean, we didn't have too much practice before the recent T1 tournament. So whenever obviously any person, it doesn't matter who it is, if you're going into a roster of 4 people, unless you're in like unless your personality is like just so strong, like you're not gonna overtake things, and obviously you don't want to mess a lot of things. I know if you watch like Jason R's video about why he didn't play in the T1 tournament, that was as well. He didn't want to go into the team and then mix everything up before they actually played in this tournament because they didn't have a lot of time. So it's the same thing. He's been a little quieter, but he's already made it apparent from the start. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm quiet. I'm just kind of trying to feel things out. But recently, whenever we've been going over like pods and practice and everything, he's getting more comfortable, and obviously he's putting his input a lot more with a lot of different strategies and different input. And obviously, I mean, his experience is invaluable. Like the stuff that he could bring to the table with our team. And obviously, I was joking about the CS players earlier about like certain things. But
there was one on your team. It's okay. It's not a big deal.
No. But like in actuality, like they bring a lot to the table in a game like this. So he brings a lot to the table, and obviously he's like told us like things that we need to work on and things that are important, so we can expedite the process of us learning and focus on other things. So at the beginning he wasn't very vocal, but he made it apparent like he doesn't want to like ruin too many things. And after this tournament, now that we have time to sit back for the next one, we're gonna implement a lot of things.
Nice.
I want you to keep it real with me for a second, man. It's just me and you talking right now, okay? You know, fuck the rankings, fuck what everyone says on Reddit, fuck Twitter, right? To you, who is the #1 team in the game and the best player in the game, in your opinion, so far?
So we've looked at a couple. Obviously, I'm not going to speak too much on the European scene because we've seen a couple tournaments, but until you play against them, you don't really know. So I'll talk about just NA. In my personal opinion, the bet. So, I mean, numbers don't lie.
This ought to be a good hot take. I like it.
Well, numbers don't lie. You would have to see that TSM is the best team in the game as far as accomplishments. I mean, they almost beat T1 without their full roster in like the Twitch broadcast tournament. And although Myth did pretty dang well for playing against T1, obviously he's not hazed. So I would have to say TSM. With saying that though, I think the team, as far as like the little time we played against them, that gives us the most trouble would be T1. Like we've performed better against TSM than T1, but that's just because I mean play styles are huge in this game. Like you see teams like for instance, Pansy was talking about earlier, Rob Wiz, the team's named Code 7. You'll see Code 7 drop to teams that normally they shouldn't when they're beating like T1 or taking maps off TSM because play styles are huge in this game. So I would say against the team we think is the best. Against our playstyle would be T1, but I mean, it's hard to argue that TSM is the best team in NA. As far as best player in the game, I think everyone on our team would agree that TenZ is the best player in the game.
Really?
Oh, okay.
In NA.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, TenZ is trapped in this. Well, TenZ is trapped on a non-functioning team right now. Like he's insane every game he plays, but he can't win. Is the biggest issue. But I would see where that would come from for sure.
I mean, it's kind of weird because I mean the dude's insane. Like we played against him and nobody does stuff against our team that like he's the only person that could do like just crazy 3-4Ks just because the dude's just mechanically gifted. But obviously you have to take that with a grain of salt because he is playing Jet and that takes away from team. That takes away from your team. Like he's not playing characters that are supporting his team. So I mean, mechanically I think he's the best player in the game, but best team player. We don't know yet because it's hard to say because their team isn't fulfilled.
I love it.
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, Moses,
go ahead, Pansy.
can I get one more question in real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because you mentioned TSM and TenZ and some of the kind of like North American style, it seems super puggy, right? To me, I'm still seeing this super puggy, very aggressive, very operator-dependent playstyle coming out of North America right now. I mean, like Wardell obviously being one of the best players people are going to bring up. I mean, you know, you look at TenZ as well, like all these players, you know, sitting on the operator is being huge. Do you think the meta's going to shift away from that? And when I watch you guys play, I don't see you lean as heavily on the operator as I see other teams. I feel you're building the right fundamentals for the long-term gain rather than the short-term. How do you feel the NA meta is kind of shaping up right now? Because to me, it's still super puggy. Is that being changed from your opinion, do you think? Or are you still like not quite there yet? Or how's the meta kind of fitting up over there?
So I would say it's very. So I would say there's a lot of teams that play super puggy. In like there's certain teams. I'm not going to name the teams, but there's definitely teams that we scrim against that when we play in tournaments, it's like, okay, I mean, now that you're playing so puggy in scrims, you don't have the fundamentals when a tournament happens. So whenever a guy pushes up to try to flank, he's dead, and now you're not comfortable because you're not pushing anymore. And now you don't have the basic fundamentals of team chem, strategy, and stuff like that. There are teams who are very, like, for instance, I think T1 on Fate, like, just looking at them on just face value, it would be they're a puggy team because they don't use their utility as good as some other teams might at the moment. But they're a very structured team. Like, that team, they don't really play that puggy. They just peek a lot of stuff because they're very confident. But they're a very structured team, and that's why teams like Code 7 could give them a trouble, because you have Rob Wiz flying in the air, double dashing, 360 no scoping people, and it creates chaos. I mean, there's teams like somebody I want to give like credit to is Som. We've played against him in the past, and right now he was playing with a Faze, and obviously people get slack for performing and he didn't perform that well in the tournament. But I mean, the stuff that dude's bringing to that team, because that's naturally a very puggy team, because they're new, like they're gonna be puggy. Whenever we play against teams, I think the teams that Som has been on, he's very structured. Like, he has a lot of set hit takes, and I think he's one of the best Sovas in the game, regardless of whatever he puts the numbers up. He's also IGL, and he structures the team very well. But I think overall it's very puggy. But I think it's going to change, and obviously us looking at all these teams who are winning tournaments with operator heavy and pure mechanical skill, I mean, we're licking our lips for the next tournament.
So I have one more question before we let you go, Valliate. Obviously, this last tournament was a series of both ups and downs. You had some of the most exciting games that we were able to watch. Unfortunately, that kind of resulted in you guys putting yourselves in not putting yourselves in a position, but finding yourselves in a position where you were, hinging your entire tournament success on 1 or 2 rounds. And I'm interested to know, as a team, if there was one thing that you kind of took away from this tournament that you guys are going to be working on the most heading into your near future.
One thing. I mean, like we're a very open-minded team, so obviously we look at a lot of things. But I think well, I guess the one thing that's drastic to us, but which you can't really like, okay, you know what, we're gonna bring it into the next round, is after we got out of groups, we won 2 pistol rounds against every team. Like, if you add up, like, literally, we played like what 4 or 5 teams after we came out of groups, or 6 games, and we won 2 pistol rounds. And we were in these games, and that's huge in this game, because although, like in CS, you win pistol, you win 3 rounds, or however it might be. I haven't watched CS recently, but in this game, you win pistol, you win 2 rounds, but it's not that you just get 2 free gifted rounds. But with the way that this economy works is, if you win that 3rd gun round, like, you're set up for good, because now the other team has to eco for a 4th round. Now it's 4-0, and you have max money with full util and everything. Yeah. So those pistol rounds were hurting us. So we're going to work on our pistol rounds a lot. But I think the biggest thing about us is to take away would be just like, I guess, like post-plant positions, because we're a fairly new team. So people are holding the same angles, and that's what allows us to get like 2K. That's why that one round, I don't want to bring it up, but the Immortals, the last round when we were up 5v2 and we got pinched, like a lot of people were holding the same angles. The communication was chaotic because we're a fairly new team, and I guess that's the biggest thing: communication, post plants, and pistol rounds.
It's it's fresh, and I know the pain, dude. I mean, and not to bring back even older wounds, but it's like missing out on a certain tournament by a couple of points or qualifying that. And I think these are all good experiences, and obviously it's only going to make you better as a person. And I cannot wait to see what 100 Thieves continues to put on. We know that this is a talented team. We know all of you, and I'm specifically rooting for you, if only for the merch connection. So I hope that you guys continue to succeed, and I can't wait to see what's coming from you. Thank you so much, Valliate, for joining us.
Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Don't leave.
Okay. All right.
There's
go Vally.
I was nodding my head and smiling throughout that whole interview segment.
Can I say something?
I had no idea.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you up. I watched the last video. I don't know if I want to get roped into the stuff you're saying, so I got to be careful here. You be saying some wild stuff.
No, you're good. You're good. I was saying, what does puggy mean?
Puggy? Oh, puggy is very like free, like pug. A pug is like so people playing, like, obviously if you go to a basket, it's a pickup game. So a pickup game, and people say puggy. So whenever you play like you're playing a pickup game, like you got nothing to lose. So now you're just gonna flank nonstop. You're gonna peek every angle. You're gonna push. You're gonna catch teams off guard. There's nothing to lose, so you're not scared of making mistakes. And some people
Absolutely.
thrive
Hey,
over
Val,
that.
I promise I'm not that bad, man. I'm gonna rope you into all that shit. All right? But I wish
Okay.
you the best of luck.
Yeah,
Man.
some conflicting definitions of the word simp, I believe, would come up later down the line. But let's let Valliate go.
Damn.
Thank you so much for joining me, man. Joining us,
you,
man, and
appreciate
we
it.
look forward to having you back in the future.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Yeah, shout out to 100 Thieves
Bye.
as well. Thanks. All right, man. Well, we have one more thing I want to quickly touch on before we move on to the tournament stuff, which was Artis. Artis had a little bit of a cheating scandal, kind of haunting him a little bit, match fixing, whatever you want to call it. But as far as I'm aware, at least what's been posted on Twitter, that Valorant, at least Riot has independently verified that everything's fine. So Artis is, at least for now, free and clear of any issues regarding that kind of stuff. I think he addressed the situation in a relatively real way, and I hope that he's able to move past it right now. And again, another big thank you to Valliate and the guys at Hunt Thieves for coming to chat with us here today. Let's move on to some tournament news. A quick check-in into the Trovo Live. Oh, sorry, did I step on you, Valliate? You got something for me?
No, I'm happy. We talking tournament gameplay. I've been waiting for this all day.
Okay, good. Yeah, so Trovo is ongoing. And we have a couple of brackets here to show you what's going on now. This is for those of you who are wondering why we're just looking at like half a bracket. It's because there's about 1,000 teams in this thing, and they've been going through qualifiers for quite some time on their way to a I guess a main event or an eventual streamed event. Nothing's been streamed yet. Trovo, for those of you guys who don't know, is a new streaming platform that Tencent has some cash behind. So that's probably why you're seeing them so often. They try to make a splash in the tournament scene. Pansy, I know you had some thoughts on the people participating here. Anyone we should be keeping our eyes on?
I'm way more familiar with EU than NA. NA, I think this is the thing, right? People at home, if you're watching the podcast, obviously, and you're tuning in live right now to this, you care about the scene enough to go beyond just watching the big invitationals. The teams you're seeing in these sort of brackets and these sort of groups are probably the teams that are going to cause everyone to be like, who the hell are they and how are they beating my boy Skadoodle, right? These are the teams down the line that will be the ones to be the real contesters and the ones to contend. I mean, I'm looking at 2 4GL just because they are the old COD 4 guys. I like them. They're the old Finnish team that I used to love watching and, I played a fair bit with back in the day. I see Timu's teams made it through as well. But again, I think I'm surprised how few big teams got involved in this, if I'm honest. Maybe the idea of that gigantic bracket scared the life out of them, but it is what it is, right? I think that, again, this is something to keep your eyes on. If you're someone who's really dedicated to seeing, beyond just, your Twitch rivals or your, big invitationals, these are the sort of things to remember these names because they'll be cropping up down the line, right? These names will be repeated and suddenly popping up.
Yeah, if you're getting through these like long ass brackets where you're having to play, 6-7 games in a day or something like that, these are the guys that you want to be keeping an eye out for because they're the guys who actually give a shit and don't just care about showing up in our rivals now and again. So we'll be keeping an eye on it. We have top 8s now for both regions. I just want to see some on-stream gameplay. I mean, I'm a little bit lazy. I'm not going to be like researching brackets and seeing who's doing well against who and keeping that. I have enough like random crap floating around in my head that I forget, important things like feeding my pets now and again. So I have to keep the brain clear. I'm just joking. I want to see if Velly was still awake, but yeah. I think for Trovo, it's going to be interesting to see, especially a fully qualified tournament like this. And I hope that that's the kind of stuff we have moving forward as well. So, Velly, any thoughts on the Trovo stuff?
No, honestly, I even asked you about it because, like I said, I've unplugged, and now that I see it, I like it. It's pretty dope. It's not a bunch of show matches. A lot of teams really out there to make a name for themselves. It's shit that grows in the esports scene. That's that grassroots stuff that I like. I need more of it.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on quickly then to and just as a housekeeping note, the tournament for Trovo Live starts on July 3rd and ends on the 5th. So I guess that's what is that, next weekend? Yeah, so that's next weekend. The Trovo tournament will be ongoing. So I'm not sure what kind of coverage we have, but we'll cover that. We'll cover that next week. So let's talk about G2. G2 is the team that has now been signing the most players, and as EU as an entire region, I hope this is a sign of more things to come because we have not seen too many signings, or at least complete signings, coming out of coming out of Europe And compared to NA, their full complete rosters are nowhere near the same level, not from a skill wise, but from an establishment standpoint. So let's talk about G2. Pansy, Velly, they picked up Mixwell, Patatek, and Pith. These are all guys that have CS experience, I believe. I'm not a huge. I don't know too much about
Shocker.
Patatek, but tell me about these guys, Pansy. If who am I sleeping on here?
Honestly, Patek is great. Polish player, very solid. I know that he wasn't around at a couple of Valve events, if I'm not mistaken, because of a VAC ban at one point, so he wasn't exactly on my radar through that. So again, that's something that I know of, but I'm not sure how much that hindered his CS approach. Again, and I don't know the full story behind that. So that was just kind of where my knowledge is very limited on him. However, Pitt on the other side is a phenomenal player. I mean, he never... he kind of broke through in CS for a little while. I was a big fan of him just before he moved out towards NA. He did a little bit of a stint out in North America when EU was just exporting talent left and right in Counter-Strike. But Pitt was always as a very aim-based, interesting player, very explosive play style. He's been, I don't want to say quiet so far. He hasn't been the kind of headliner that I know he can be, but he's been solid. He's kind of a safe pair of hands. He was mostly kind of sitting on your ciphers, that sort of role, and he's been good. He's been incredibly diligent. He's the type of player that puts up numbers that, again, aren't going to be the 30-40 bomb, but let's say those 15 kills he does get will be the ones that actually, you know, close you out rounds. So Pitt's a really good, solid choice. I don't know enough about Patatek, if I'm honest. I've seen him in a lot of Valorant tournaments already, though, so I want to see how well he does in the future in this title, and if he, you know, keeps going from strength to strength. But yeah, it's an interesting roster move. I'm not too sold yet, but again, for me, I was hoping for the dream team, you know, the Existence, Scream, Happy, but obviously that's, you know, whether or not that could ever work out is beyond the point. But yeah, it's not a bad move so far from G2.
I just hope that we see more solidification here. Velly, I mean, Europe seems to be lagging behind a little bit as far as not necessarily skill, but just this, like, I guess the T1 tournament kind of sets this structure. Like, we've had now, like, our big North American tournament. Where is our big European tournament at?
I don't know, but maybe that has to do with the popularity of just the NA players in general. You got to take a look at the different regions, and throughout a multitude of titles, NA, we have the biggest stars, you know, the biggest personalities. So it makes sense for teams like 100 Thieves and everyone else to pick up a Hiko, to pick up, you know, Sinatra, anyone else, and throw these big tournaments, because we have a lot more stardom out here. EU, it's weird to see them lagging behind right now, because in the PC world, they remain, you know, king and queen of, you know, everything out there. It's gonna come. It's gonna come. But it's my boring ass answer to everything like that is just give it time. But I would love to see artists. I don't know if that rumor has been shot down or whatever yet. I haven't followed it, but I wonder if artist is still in consideration for G2. If that rumor
should be.
It's a question. I mean, him being cleared is one thing, but he's got a lot of, like, heat on him right now as well. You know, Twitter often doesn't give a shit about whether or not someone's been cleared off. Daniel, wake up, Daniel. Thank you.
Let me mean to Daniel.
Shout out to Daniel. Daniel had.
I started to feel uncomfortable.
Like, Daniel's actually at a library downtown right now because his internet at home didn't work. So. Yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah,
Daniel's had a rough morning, but
from an EU perspective, and God, I'm literally just doing this to get YouTube and anyone else watching this who's in chat to fucking hate me. But honestly, EU doesn't have big names, so it doesn't matter. I'd say they have a solid, almost a more solid foundation of players right now. No, we don't have, you know, the scandalous Brax coming back in, or the retired Skadoodle, but we all know that North America has bigger brands. But did they win as many majors as Europe did in Counter-Strike? No. So let's kind of keep it for what it is.
Oh, okay.
You know, obviously,
Counter-Strike, Pansy.
I mean, tell that to every team that's won every tournament. Tell that to them. Now, I mean, the point is, like, in my mind, if you want a brand, you go NA. You pick up a North American team. You pick up your Shroud, Skadoodle, nothing. You know, you get your North American Cloud9 back in the day, and they will sell jerseys. They'll be a great representative. They'll look great in North America. They may even go as far to, like, pick up a major or two if they, you know, really fucking grind. But the point is, if you want consistent results, but you also probably don't get that star power of, a Skadoodle or a Brax. You don't get headlines for picking up Patty Tech. You don't get headlines for picking up Pit. So again, it's one of those things of what do these teams want right now? They want to be, the kind of front page of, an article. They want to be the talk of the town. They want to get, all the Twitch rivals plebs to be like, yes.
They just want the money, the fame, the viewership, the sales, the the viewership. They want to have name recognition. Whereas Europe is happy with just like, smoking long Polish cigarettes, coating themselves in baby oil, and going down to like the Spanish beaches to talk about how much better they are than all those Americans.
You're from Canada, dude. Why do you love
That's
America? They're the meth head downstairs from you. What's wrong with you? Why are you backing that up? No, I mean, again, like
unlike European Valorant.
Wow. Okay. Some of us have taste. We don't just like, shitty frag movies from Skadoodle. But no, the point is, EU right now, I think if anyone knows Counter-Strike and anyone who knows kind of esports as a whole, NA's brand value is substantially more. It always will be, it always has been, especially when it comes to Twitch. Just how it is, right? Like that's not gonna pull punches here. So when a game first comes out, you want to pick up the streamer squad. You want to pick up the team that's gonna get you eyes, that you can resell at a good value, that could be on a streamer team if you don't want them to be on the esports talk, whatever. It's the right move. EU, I don't think can do quite the same thing. There are some players that could fulfill that role, but to field a full squad, probably not worth it. So again, it's the regions are split very differently, but I would say EU-wise right now is playing better fundamental Valorant. Now, of course, this is all fucking theory because there's no way these teams are going to meet up for the bare minimum rest of the year, if not even longer. So again, it's all talking shit, but I think just by watching a great deal of both scenes and speaking to some players, I got to catch Taimu streaming, and he was watching back the T1 tournament. Pip put out some tweets. The styles between the regions and the approaches to the game are also very different right now. So, yeah, I don't know. NA is a weird space. I mean, it is exciting to cast though and watch. Like the highlights.
Give them their time in the sun.
It looks good. It looks good.
Give them their time in the sun. They before we're in the international tournaments and the FPS gods put us back in the natural order of things. But we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we are gonna be going real deep on the entire T1 tournament. We've been kind of threading it in here and there as we've been talking this morning, but we're gonna go real deep on the T1 Showdown. So we'll be back in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Valoranting. Still with me, Pansy and Velly, and we've been having a fun discussion about all the different things happening in the Valorant community over the last week. And now we have to talk about the biggest thing that happened over the weekend, which is the T1 and Nerd Street Gamers Valorant Showdown presented by... Oh, wait, no, I'm not in that mode anymore. So let's talk about the T1 Showdown. And let's just talk right off the top. Actually, let's set the stage. Let's take a look at the roster for T1. Or seriously, I went too far back. Faze Clan, incomplete roster. That was my story of the back half of the tournament, was how good Faze Clan was playing. This was a team we touched on a little bit earlier. Corey, Zachary, Marv, Som, and Def. The only person signed on this roster to Faze Clan is Corey. However, Marv and Def were big standouts for me, with some moments here from Zachary and Som. Notably absent from this roster was Jason R., their most recent signing, and we talked about this a little bit prior. He did not want to join the team right before the tournament because they had no time to practice and it was going to be a bit disruptive, so they didn't do it. Pansy, from what you saw from Faze, what was your takeaways? Obviously, there's not a lot that we can really solidify about the team because it's not really a team right now, is it?
Yeah, I mean, for what they were, very good. I mean, they made it very far into the tournament. Well, I think they dropped out in not quite semis, but just before quarters. I think they got up towards facing TSM. And they did really well. I mean, overall, they're a solid team. In the lower bracket, they got dropped out in a best of one. I'm never going to read too much into BO1s, if I'm honest, but they've shown really good fundamentals. And I just think that they're a team that can definitely not cause upsets, but they can bring interesting play style. I think the roster they have is pretty solid, if I'm honest. I want to see how these players do once they get some more time together as their full five, and kind of take more stock away from what to expect from them. But they've shown real promise. I think this is a great debut for them, coming in saying, hey, okay, we are still a bit of a mix. We are still playing as, not necessarily a full roster here, but we've done well, and that's something to be proud of. I mean, if they did go any further, it would be a bit of a shocker to the teams that they beat on the way more than anything. So for the starting blocks they had, they did really, really well. So they can be proud of this. They can be happy with that. That's, you know, a good starting point. Hey, here's the bar. Let's now, as a 5, push beyond that. We've shown we've got the basics. Let's now kind of push above.
If anything, I kind of look at Faze as a bit of a coming out party for players like Def and Marved, who had a lot of great moments. Even Psalm, I mean, he didn't have the best overall tournament, but he had moments where, you know, he had some, I don't know, 2K, 3K, some moments there for him. So I look to see players like Def probably being more considered for a permanent spot, considering his prior experience and skill level, not to mention his performance in this tournament specifically. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, he's a good player, and
he's also
I think
British. So.
And okay, I see. I was wondering why you wanted to talk. every time we come across at least a halfway decent UK player, all the other UK people start perking up. So it's
hell yeah, we do.
So for him, I would love to see him get himself a roster spot. Marved, I don't know much about him, but he's a young player. Corey had lots of great things to say about him in his interview. A player maybe like Vegas would slot in well, but I think that they need to do a little bit more experimentation with Jason R and Corey as the core and see who fits with them, because obviously those are the guys you need to build the team around. So whoever fits best with them would be great. So otherwise, Faze, they were impressive, but really that's kind of the end of the story for them. It was a good one. It was a good tournament for them. Good showing for Faze. They had, I mean, the games against 100 Thieves were arguably some of the most exciting that I've seen so far. And I'm not sure if it was a good thing as a spectator, but definitely not a great thing for 100 Thieves if a mixed team is giving you that much trouble. But you know, it can be hard.
Push you,
Pansy,
right?
any thoughts on? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question.
No,
Sorry. I was gonna ask.
No, go ahead, Velly. Go ahead, Velly.
I actually didn't happen to see the Faze games. What type of play style do they have? Like, what's their identity that we see right now?
From what I've seen is that they have like a good structure. They're not as much as I say puggy. It's a loose play style. It's heavily more dependent on kind of individuals stepping up. So when you look at when I look at T1 and TSM, I see. Well, it's not even that. It makes it sound negative, and it's not. But so for example, in Counter-Strike, you'll have someone like Faze, who's a little bit looser in strategic approach, but they kind of depend very heavily on like a looser play style because their individuals thrive in that sort of element that they can deliver in situations where others couldn't. So when I look at Faze, I don't actually see them in that category. I see them more in a little bit of a structured category, which is a bit of a rarity out in North America right now, to see a little bit more of that thinking man's approach, which is what I want to see from 100 Thieves as well down the line. But that takes longer to implement. So as I said, if I'm already seeing good signs of life from someone like Faze, who has that kind of like, okay, you got some real standout players, but you also have that nice strategic element coming in, that's a really nice composition to have. So it could go really far down the line once they've got that there with them. So I think Faze kind of fulfills that role for me. But again, I don't know what their full roster is going to be. It could shift completely away.
Yeah, and when I was saying unrefined, I was more so talking along the lines of like they didn't have the same team level execution that say an Immortals or a Gen G or a TSM would have, because they just didn't practice together, so they would never have that level of execution. But from an individual standpoint, I think Pansy nailed it on the head, where these guys obviously have a lot of skill, but they just need to find themselves, you know, that practiced set roster like everybody else. I mean, this is the same criticism we levy at Europe. And I think that once all these teams start to solidify rosters, we have opportunities like with the T1 tournament to kind of pit them against each other and see who's actually you know, got it together and who doesn't. So let's talk now about the next big one, which was T1. I was overall impressed with them. Obviously, this is you know, in the context of this tournament, they didn't come out ahead, but this is arguably, you know, if we're saying TSM is the best team, T1 is like the 1A or sorry 1B to their 1A TSM, and essentially they're right there with TSM. This is a team, you know, the team. It's Brax, AZK, Skadoodle, Crashies, and Food. My big ones through this tournament was actually Food and Crashies. We know what Skadoodle can do. We know that Brax obviously has a lot of hype behind him. AZK is the IGL and was carrying just a very consistent load through the tournament. But there were moments where Food and Crashies were carrying the load. Specifically, Food. I think he was the more consistent of the two. But Food was a big standout to me. Pansy, from what you saw from T1, what were your takeaways as far as their team play or as their roster? Anything that stood out to you?
To me, food is fine. I'm not going to go too in deep with him. I think he fulfilled his role. The player I want to really kind of like zone in on here was Crashies. Now, when I look at that whole roster, I look at kind of your two Flare players. You get Skadoodle and you get Brax. You kind of these two, you want to kind of let them loose a little bit, let them have that play style. They can do what they want. I look at the likes, and they're fun to watch, right? They're your highlight players. They're the ones that your like bronze 2 players will idolize forevermore. Your slightly higher ranked guys, you see they're going, God damn, those were the big frags, will be your kind of AZK and your Crashies. Now, Crashy plays such a hard role. I look at Ascent specifically. He plays that kind of Cypher role. He very much solo anchors a site. And for him to even go positive sometimes is a miracle. And that's no discredit to him. The role he has to play is literally, I'm going to anchor this site and buy time for my rotations. He sits there and he plays it so well. If you are a Cypher, watch this guy and pick up how he does it. It's sometimes that 1-for-1 trade you get isn't that valuable. Fall back on the side. Even if you get picked, let's say you buy like, I don't know, even if it's like 5 to 7 more seconds, something like that, using utility being a constant nuisance, that is more valuable because then you've allowed time for the other players on your team to, fall over and be able to maybe, either take the fight there and then if the timing's right, or position really well for a retake. So for me, Crashies was very, very good. AZK is still the guy that I look at as to who gets valuable kills. If you want someone to ace or pop off, you Brax, Skadoodle, got it. But you want the guy who gets you those 2 kills that opens up that retake, it's AZK all day. So those two to me were such standout players. And again, Skadoodle's wonderful. He always put up numbers, but you want that kind of balance. You want that kind of 2 sides to the coin because the freedom that someone like Brax or Skadoodle gets is off the back of someone like AZK holding these angles, playing in rough positions that are hard to work from, and they do it incredibly well and not to the detriment of the team. So to me, those two you've got to look at as the glue that binds this squad together.
Yeah, for me, AZK was carrying the heaviest load, and you can see how often that he was able to get 2-3 kills in a round, and not to mention carrying the weight of the IGL role as well. I mean, that's extremely impressive. Skadoodle had great moments as well. I think we all know that these guys, like the core, let's say, of AZK, Skadoodle, and Brax have all the talent in the world. But I guess something that was kind of consistent through the tournament was actually the lack of output from Brax. Now, I'm not out here trying to say that he's washed up or anything like that, but I think there's been a lot of pressure and a lot of hype behind him. Not to mention the fact that he carries a streaming presence, as does Skadoodle. Like, these are guys that are arguably were influencers for the better part of the last year, and in Brax's case, the better part of the last 2 years, when as someone who wasn't able to compete directly in Counter-Strike and majors and that kind of stuff. So obviously streaming was a big part of that. Do you think that Pansy, that Brax was underperforming, or was this something that is there any concern here just looking at T1 in its little box, or sorry, at the T1 tournament's little box?
No, I think Brax is fine. I think that the better the other teams play against him, the more you're going to get punished. His playstyle up until this point was very much dependent on him being able to kind of create space for himself, which becomes incredibly difficult. People still do it, of course, but it becomes harder and harder to do because people learn how they like to play. People will know that Brax will be up to these small bits and pieces. But I saw this guy still banging with some of the best aim out of everyone. I mean, he is phenomenal. Yes, is that KD up to what we kind of mentally put towards Brax? Probably not, but I don't really care. He was very, very good at what he did. He opened up space for them. He created opportunities. And again, it's one of those when you're in a situation, let's say, I don't know, a 3v5, a 2v5, Brax will somehow find you those 3 kills. He still fulfills that role where he gets away with it because he's got such crisp aim. I mean, my mind instantly goes to Ascent. I saw him hitting, this dirty 3K, and he makes it look good. So again, I think it's a good sign to not see him be able to get away with too much because these teams are becoming aware of it and stopping that from happening. That's what it should be. You shouldn't be able to get these crazy moments all the time. It should be a rarity. So I think teams are just simply getting better at controlling someone like him. But again, Brax, he'll evolve past that. He'll keep pushing. I'm never going to say he's in a bad spot because I know the guy's hungry. So you've got to see that keeping up and finding that in his performance, right?
But the thing is, go
ahead, Velly. Go ahead.
I apologize. I mean, yeah, Brax is a star. I personally feel like he has the best aim in the game, but also at the same time, if you're a professional in something, you have to be the best whenever you put on your game shoes. Brax shouldn't be going 4-14. Let's just call it what it is, especially if you're using Raze. Yeah, he does a great job at making plays for himself, making room for himself and his team, but you can't do that. Yes, I liked it when he did switch on the Omen, but he has to do better.
Yep.
Do I think it's the end all for this team? Hell no. But does Brax need to be more consistent when it comes to those bigger games? Hell yeah. So I don't think it's the end of him. I don't think he deserves any type of long-term slander. Maybe some jokes to pop off here and there, but that's it. I expected way more from Brax because I feel like if Brax performed, I honestly don't even think we saw real finals yet to their full potential between these two teams. We saw one team popping off and then the other team struggling. So, I mean, we're going to jump into that, but I mean, you have to do better, especially if you take that long of a hiatus in between tournaments.
Pansy, what do you think?
Just quickly, Moses,
go ahead.
if you don't mind. Sorry, just real quick. Someone in chat actually brought up a really good point that I was going to actually lean on a little bit later down the line when it came to TSM, but they raise it here and I might as well kind of highlight it. We don't have the aggro AWPer on T1. So the only issue that I see is potentially that. So my mind instantly goes to someone like
Wardell.
Artis and Mixwell.
Okay, fair enough. Euros
go for
only.
that.
Fair enough.
I go for it. I go for it because Europe was a little bit clearer cut. So Mixwell was kind of your more Skadoodle-esque AWPer where it's not as hyper aggressive. It's more kind of playing around the side itself. Let's just say defensive side just to keep it easy. If there's a double up in play, Mixwell is not the guy who's going to just run up mid and do something filthy. He's not your kind of instigator in these crazy plays. But right now with an op-heavy game, it might be nice to throw that in for T1, but I don't know who could fulfill that role. If Brax feels like maybe he wants to throw that in, that could be a big step up for him if he really fancies kind of trying to take on something new. So again, those sort of things, I think right now for T1, if they keep being pushed, if they keep losing in finals, they might have to look at it. Because as I said, the team they lost against, the example you went for, which is Wardell and Sabrosa, definitely has that in droves. They have that double up presence. They have that kind of, aggressive and slightly less aggressive. I mean, Sabrosa's still kind of in your face a lot, but it's still there. So yeah, I think it could be something to throw into the mix because Skadoodle, yes, he is a flashy AWPer, but he's not going to be the crazy AWPer. He's not your kind of, in the face, running around being wild. So I think that's something to look at in the future for T1 if they keep finding themselves in these predicaments.
For me, it did feel that T1 trended towards the defensive. I think they were I think they were accused of being passive in some way. Now that's like a Twitch chat accusation, so I'm not going to read too much into it. But ultimately, I think that it's an experience thing as well. There's one thread in this whole thing with T1, and I spoke to the T1 CEO Joe Marsha during one of the interview segments, and I asked him, "Will we be seeing more of T1 in the future?" And his response was kind of measured in the sense that, once the bigger tournaments, like the more worthy tournaments start appearing, then that we will start seeing T1. However, on the flip side, TSM has been playing in everything. This has been the thread of why TSM has more success, it seems, than T1, and I think that's why they ultimately took over. Was the fact that TSM just they're like, what is the LOF times DTS Invitational Series? I've never heard of that before. It's these little things.
It's got
that,
full grand, man. I'll play in it.
Exactly. Well, that's what I mean.
I'm
not saying that these tournaments aren't worth it for them, but it's just reps. They're not always going to be the highest quality reps for TSM, but it's reps nonetheless. They're in game. It's a game situation. Everyone's trying their best, and TSM is able to play well. Whereas T1, the last time we saw them was in Rivals. So it's and Rivals is for a team like T1. You might as well be going down to a kindergarten with the Hulk smash gloves on and beating up some kids. It's not worth it. It's just there's not there. It's not the same. So I kind of think that for TSM that was the big difference maker. So Velly, for T1, what is it time to shelf that mentality that we're too good to be playing in these low rent tournaments? Shout out to the originators.
TSM. They're the reason why this team is now. I personally believe they're the best in the game, period. A lot of people believe that, and rightfully so. T1, a lot of people were saying, oh, they're the best. No, they're just not in the tournament, so we don't see them. You and I had that conversation last time, right? They showed up, and then you saw people caught off guard. People were slacking. And to be quite honest, they didn't have an answer for TSM at all. And it wasn't just one player. It was multiple, right? Scrims are great, but even though these tournaments are smaller, these are the best type of game day practices you could currently have until the real day comes. Why put that opportunity away on the shelf when you can get better? You can progress. TSM, they're not backing down. They're like, hey, whatever. LOF tournament. I don't even know what the hell that stands for. They're going to play in it, and they're going to win that because they know that in scrims, yeah, maybe sometimes teams play to win and whatnot, but on game day for these 20K tournaments, these 4K tournaments, that's where you're going to get the sweats. That's when you're going to get the unorthodox strats that you're going to see and start to put in your own head for theory crafting. That's when you're going to get everything in that game to put into your knowledge bank to get better for the next time around. So I feel like they need to start playing more. Do what TSM's doing because it's obviously working for one team and not the other.
If I had a tinfoil hat around, I'd be putting it on right now. So this is my other. This is something I haven't really brought up, but just kind of just came to me in the pre-show while we were thinking about this stuff. Is we have this kind of situation where Brax and Skadoodle have massive stream presences, and to take a weekend off streaming to play in a tournament is arguably going to be more of a financial hit to them than winning said tournament for $4,000 or whatever it is. I'm sure guys like Skadoodle and Brax are making $4,000 in a weekend, no problem streaming. So I can't imagine that there is going to be a time where they're not considering, is this tournament worth my time versus streaming? And if that is the case, and I'm not saying it is, but this is something you have to consider. If that is the case, is T1 with the core of Skadoodle, Brax, and AZK capable of, or are they going to have the fire to continue to compete, even if it means giving up some of the glitz and glamour you get from being a big streamer? So that's something I would like to see either be rectified or discussed.
It's work.
It's fickle though. I mean, the thing is that their streams wouldn't be popular without them competing in higher end tournaments. If I'm honest, for them specifically, I mean, those two played around the same time as, you know, the Shroud time in Counter-Strike, where Shroud's stream was more valuable than him going to the, you know, premium top-end Counter-Strike tournament. So that's why he backed away. I don't think that Skadoodle or Brax would be in the right place to do that personally. I think that for them, I think Skadoodle was building a good brand, but for Brax, at the end of the day, you know, his whole brand was this kind of redemption arc, right? This is his shot back at it. If he walks away and goes, well, fuck it, I'll just stream, it's going to be, I think they'll leave a bitter taste in some people's mouths. Now, whether or not that's fair or not to Brax, that's a debatable point. But the point is that I think for him to stay true to the kind of brand that he's put out there, you kind of have to keep competing. You got to keep going at this. And then you guys actively picked up Skadoodle as your 5th player. You can't sit there and be the streamer team. You know what I mean? You can't play both sides of the field. You got to lean on being competitors now. Otherwise, you made the wrong choice in picking him up rather than Hiko. So, and again, even for Hiko, he's a streamer as well. But, you know, these players retired from Counter-Strike, so they had to get the, you know, funding from somewhere, right? You gotta pay the bills, and they're very good at games. Now, when Valorant gets to the point where it's going to be sustainable to look at financially long-term over streaming, then they should instantly switch towards that. And honestly, I don't care if they don't play in some smaller tournaments. I think they should be doing more than they are. But I think that their loss to TSM was more than that. So I don't want to instantly lean that way, but I think I'd like to see more of them. I don't think just going for the highest end, but be around a bit more. Because as I said, scrims aren't as useful as actual official games. I'd like to see them being a bit more active.
I think this loss is going to be important for them, honestly, as a team. I think losing to TSM in the fashion that they did, like without, they put up one map, right? Total, or I can't recall, but yeah, one map on Ascent.
One map out of like 5, right?
Yeah. So 1 out of 5 rounds winning against a team like TSM. I think it's an important loss for T1 to be like, okay, we have the name, we have the brand, we have all this stuff behind us, but now we have to back it up. And I think that the competitors and the competitive nature of the guys on that team will drive that instinct. And I fully expect T1 to bounce back. There's, like I said, there's no shortage of freaking talent on that team. They're insane. And really the difference here, again, between the top levels of Valorant is like 99% and like 98.5%. It's like they're so far and above everybody else that even though they're beating each other, they're all insane. So let's jump now over to TSM. I think this is the last little bit I wanted to kind of talk about this squad. You know, you're familiar with the rosters now: Wardell, Hayes, Cutler, Sabrosa, and Drone. The big standouts through the weekend and have been relatively consistent for TSM as a squad is the performance of Wardell and Drone, with the support of the rest of the squad, specifically Hayes, Sabrosa, and everybody. And sorry, what was the last guy? I can't remember. Cutler, right? So Cutler as well. So these guys are insane. Their executes were good. There was one map on Ascent that they I think losing the second round after winning the pistol was kind of the thorn in their side through the map that they lost. Losing that second round just seemed to kind of put them off kilter for the rest of the round that they did lose. But Pansy, I mean, what can we say about this squad? I mean, they play with such confidence and skill that I can't think of an argument that states that they are not the best in North America, potentially the world right now.
Whew. Okay. Now that's I'll see this sucks because it's so hard to say it. I'm going to throw it out there. They are the best in NA. I don't think that playstyle would thrive in Europe currently. Personally, I think if you watch a lot of the CIS teams who are currently the Europeans' best, don't sigh. Don't sigh. Stop pandering to the YouTube comments. Get out of it. No. The point is, I'm going to put it this way. So the CIS teams right now are probably some of the best out there. Party Parrots are probably leading the way, but who the fuck knows who Party Parrots are? You know what I mean? Does it sound the same as TSM or, T1? No. But they have Angel and they are nuts and they are like filthy to watch. They play exactly what you want to be seeing. But that's beyond the point. We're talking about TSM. Now, TSM style to me is heavily dependent on the fact that no other North American team that I'm seeing is currently using utility as well as they should to punish people like Wardell. So here we go. This is how sweaty I got to make this point today. So Wardell got the AWP so we're just talking about Ascent here. Wardell got the AWP on the defensive side on the 4th round, right? So he instantly had it. Now, until the 11th round, he did not get that AWP taken away from him. He had a AWP in his hands every single time. They were never able to chase it down out of his hands. He was barely ever punished in an economic fashion. And in every single kill he got, bar one, he was never flashed or pushed off an angle. Not once. Can you imagine that in Counter-Strike? Can you imagine JW, Kenny S, whoever it is, whoever you like, never getting flashed and pushed off the angle they picked? Can you imagine what they do to it? You saw it. You saw what happened. JW in what, 20, when was it? I took it in my notes. What, 20, it was like 2018 maybe, 2017, earlier, when Fnatic went on that major run before the op changes that came in. These guys got away with murder. And this is what I'm seeing here, is that TSM is getting away with murder. I have not seen them have to fall back into a traditional playstyle yet. I've seen them being hyper-aggressive, running around, getting away with it, and they are damn good players to back that up too. I mean, it works with them, right? So when you have this incredibly powerful roster of just individual god-tier players, confident, trading in well, playing this nice kind of loose play style, but, with a little bit of finesse to it, it looks fantastic. But then when you suddenly get some CIS team using their utility and just no one likes to watch it because it looks boring, you're going to get a really fun game for me to watch. But I promise you right now, watch back those games. Look at the minimap. Look at when the observer was watching your Wardells, your Sabrosas. See how many times they got utility thrown at them to slow them down. How many times did he get the peak? There's one flash. Finally, one flash from Wardell. They're putting down the utility. Finally, when it's in a 1v3. In a 1v3, how do they not use any of that utility until this point?
Let's just watch
this
this
is the thing
play
that
out really
frustrates
quick. He doesn't
me.
have the op. There's utility down. Okay, just spraying.
He's on a retake.
Oh, surprise.
He's on a retake.
Okay.
That's a crossfire that wasn't set in place. Where is the crossfire?
Okay, let's blame
how can you
TSM
walk back
for
in
the
a
other teams
1v3
being
and not a
bad.
trade?
That seems like a good strategy.
No, it's oh my god. Do I have to explain this to you? No, I mean the point is that TSM. I am. My hairline is receding by the minute. I'm gonna be like you by the end of this podcast, Moses. The point is, TSM are fantastic and they haven't been punished yet for that playstyle. And the exciting prospect to me is what layer then do they have to go to? Right? What happens when they can't be as aggressive as they are? They can't depend so heavily on the operators. Do they have a new look? Because some of the best teams in the world can get away with this playstyle, but then when they get punished, they go, okay, all right, you've humbled us a little bit. We'll show you our next look. Here's all our set pieces that you still don't know anything about.
I mean, it's not up to.
Are you kidding me?
It's not up to TSM. They're playing to the team they're versus off against. I'm not going to say that it's TSM's fault that they have no examples of them getting pushed off of stuff. Do you have any?
Sure.
What's the backup to them?
But that's the argument.
But that's okay.
Though. That's the. People
exactly.
aren't playing smart. They're playing so dumb with utility. Like, I'm 100% on Pansy's side with this, man. Like, there's a round I'm literally looking for right now. Like, the shit was so unacceptable. Like, I'm trying to find it so I give it to the producer so he can show you guys. I think it was round
10
7
on Ascent. Go to that one. I mean, geez.
Is that the one? So there's a round.
At a local library. Don't put pressure on Daniel.
Yo, this will give Pansy a fucking stroke. Like, it was between rounds 7 and 10. I swear to God. And Wardell had the op A main by himself. There was one player on this team on catwalk.
Oh, when he pushed in.
No crossfire.
Yeah.
Yes. So he comes up, he bops somebody in the forehead, right? That was hiding near the orb in the cubby. So then after that, you literally see Crashies sprint at him through the fucking Cypher fucking dome, right? It gets dome to beat. No flash hits, no smokes. They literally push one by one into an op. Why the hell are you doing that? And then not only that, Wardell is styling on him. He's backing up, pulling his knife out, turning back
Making it
around.
look
Bam,
good.
another kill. Stat pattern like a motherfucker. It did not make sense. And that's the thing. That's why I say T1, they need to play in these smaller tournaments, because when it comes to game time, mistakes like that should not be allowed, period. You cannot have Crashies running through the fucking Cypher dome to 1v1 an opper, not knowing where he is. There's no intel. You're Cypher. You have a motherfucking camera. Like, make it happen. And the thing is, the whole team was stacked in that area too. So instead of doing a group push, it was one by one. They're feeding Wardell. They're feeding Drone. That makes me so upset, because this game is smarter than that. And I know they're better than that, but they're relying so much on mechanical skill. I'm sorry.
So we're taking away from TSM's accomplishments because the other teams that played against them were not as good as them, just to be clear.
No.
Yeah.
No, they keep their accomplishments. They keep their accomplishments, but you know, I'm going to dog the other teams. I want someone else that's going to be like, you know what? Phoenix has a motherfucking flashbang, same with Breach and everyone else. Let's abuse it. No one's thinking that way yet. No one's saying let's throw in a bunch of smokes and put a camera on top, tag them and run in. Like, none of that is happening, and I don't know why. It is all about who has the better shot and who can try to outgun Wardell. That's not how you play the game. That's not how you're going to be successful. And you know what? I agree with Pansy. Yeah, I'm from NA, and I always root for NA. But if you go to EU players, they think so much more logical than that shit. They won't allow those boneheaded plays to happen. So that's why I want to see a full-fledged international tournament.
I mean, the thing is as well, right? The big thing in my eyes, this doesn't take away from their individual skill. Like, pound for pound, they are beating another team playing a similar style to them. They're just doing it better. Wardell is getting away with fucking murder. Like, and and if you're an opera and you're getting this freedom, you're loving it. You're sitting there like, this is sick. I'm loving this. Like, why would I ever be pissed at this? This is great. This is the perfect opportunity. And like, I worry that people are going to go, oh, the op is way too OP. Oh, no, use your utility. And after that, if we still see it being overpowered, then we can address it. When I see Wardell finding ways to get away with this, it's crazy to me. Now, of course, there's skill in the fact that he is managing to do this time and time again. But the point is, he's still doing this time and time again. I promise you, please go back and watch the game and be critical, because I know that Wardell is nuts. And these moments where he's able to jump out, peek back in, it's sick. Like, it's brilliant to watch him play. He is like a highlight player. I love casting this guy because he does stuff that, you know, makes it to a frag movie. But there will be a time and there will be a change in meta where you can't do that anymore. And I want to know that TSM has more looks. I want to see the strategic side. I want to see them being punished so they get that next layer up. Because right now they're running through teams. The first time I casted TSM, I could call it a mile off that no one had punished that aggression. And why would you ever stop running it until someone does? You run it until it doesn't work. So, I mean, it's going to be fun to see how the scene progresses. I think a team who thinks very strategically or has a little bit of a heavier lean on that, someone potentially like Faze or even maybe 100 Thieves, if they're able to implement it well enough, could be a good match to it. Even someone like, you know, the team that Rob Wiz is on, who has like a really unique, weird take on the game, could again do something. But again, when you get these pound for pound, just kind of like brutal.
Counter? Can we get a Rob Wiz mention counter for the next podcast, please? Because I swear
Rob
to God,
Wiz.
I've heard that name more in the last 2 weeks than I ever had in the rest of my life.
I mean, they ran a 5-man Spectre push. And like, it was just good to see teams. I like seeing teams look at the economy and go, hey, this works. Like, it may not work every round, but the theory's right. I love seeing like theoried moments, right? These kind of weird things that shouldn't work that like, you're like, well, I guess we can't get a better buy than this, and then we can still buy in the 4th, so why not run it? Like, it's better for the economy. It's a smart idea. So again, it's like cool shit like that makes me excited. And I think this is gonna change the current agent meta as well, is especially if you keep seeing these operators getting away with it, you gotta depend on your Phoenix. I mean, Phoenix dropped out of those rosters for a while. Phoenix wasn't being picked up. Breach was barely picked up. Now you're gonna have to bank on these guys to get you in on site. So I think we're gonna start seeing a little bit more of an adjustment in that regard.
And not to mention, there is the lingering question about new agents coming in and what utility they might bring and that kind of thing. So I think that I think that the meta will be, to go back a little bit to our previous discussion, will be forced forward regardless of what happens. There's going to be changes happening and that kind of thing. But I think if we were to sum up kind of all of our thoughts, and as the host, I'm allowed to do this, is that TSM is clearly the best in the world, and that there's no one else that is willing to argue at this point yet. Pansy, we all agree here, okay? Because we have to move now.
Yep, I'm on board. Yeah, fuck it.
That's fair.
Send me the jersey. I'm down.
Yeah, they did win the whole thing. They take the prize, and at this stage, when you're winning tournaments in the fashion that they did, they only dropped one round to the team they ended up beating over the entire tournament. And prior to that, we didn't really see too much in the way of TSM. So regardless of how you want to look at it, saying that the rest of NA is not challenging them enough, or if TSM is playing well, it is definitely a mix of both. And as time goes on, they will have to stay on top of things. As can we pull up the, I know I'm going real far back, Daniel, making you stretch, but can we pull up the image of G2 announcing Pith again? Because these are the guys that are coming for you. Is the Piths out there? So first of all, I want to bring up the announcement so we can have context to the tweet that I'm about to pull up next. Daniel's spinning plates in the back. I apologize, my friend, but if you can't get it, that's fine. But we can take a look at what Pith had to say regarding TSM. There he is. This is I think if you were to put like every European into a blender, this is what would come out, in my opinion. But a shout out to Pith. But this is what he's saying right now, which is watching the T1 tournament to analyze how the NA teams play, and honestly, some things are innovative and good, but in general, I'm not that impressed with all the plays and decisions. Wish there was a way to get and watch the demos. Okay, yeah. So he's not impressed, which I can understand.
Rightfully so.
But you know, it is what it is. I think that until we have an environment that they can face off against each other, we're not going to have an answer. So it's fun just to sling mud right now. Go on, Pansy.
Technically, so just to give the TSM T1 fans out there that little lifeline, technically it can work. If you get so shit hot that you don't need to fall back on this, you're fine. I mean, people are always going to argue, well, look at Faze in Counter-Strike. Look at this. I mean, they are the exception and not the rule, right? It's like you look at these teams who depend very heavily on that superstar power. You can't have a bad day, but it can work. Yeah. It can get you to the very far end. There's nothing technically wrong with doing it if you can repeat this on a regular basis. There's a reason we saw kind of the, Fnatic era being ended by someone like SK, who had really good fundamentals in Counter-Strike, and then you see the current era of Astralis, who have the best utility use in the game, the best approach to the game and how it should be played, winning everything. But as said, will they lose a random game to a French team or a FaZe clan? Sure. Because sometimes every player on those rosters has a god tier day, but depending on that is risky. However, does this mean that TSM can't change it up and become a little bit more structured? Same for T1? No, they can absolutely do that. But until they have to, why would you?
Absolutely.
I found the round.
Well, I mean,
I found the round.
What's that?
I found the round.
Oh, did you?
I was gonna give it to the producer. You can continue on. I'm just really happy right now. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So I guess at this stage we're at kind of an impasse as to when we will see these guys face off against each other. But what I'm looking forward to now is to see how TSM now solidifies themselves as these guys you want to be watching all the time. And another team I think that we have not spoken a single word about so far today is Immortals. Immortals showed a tremendous amount of improvement over the weekend. And is
100%.
this the one? Is this the round that we're talking about now? Okay.
Yes, 1140, please.
1140.
No, Moses. Like this is gonna like light up a light bulb, and when you see this happen, you're gonna be like, "Yo, what the hell is this? Like nothing makes sense." But look at that drone using utility. Was this the round? Let me see. Give me 1 second. Let me double check.
Okay.
2, 3.
I'm watching it.
No, this isn't the round.
Okay.
This isn't the
So
round.
he gets 0 kills this round. No.
Yeah,
goes back
this
to
is round. The score is 2-3.
I ain't got time for you guys to be scraping around looking for evidence, okay, to support your shoddy argument.
Me. It's hilarious.
Whatever.
Shoddy.
Want to be petty.
Shoddy.
Everyone's on their second monitor, desperately scraping for some thread, some example that would deny me my very informed opinion that TSM is best and no one is better. Okay.
You're fair. Take it. That's fine by me. You can have it.
I mean, we can get it. I think that as more tournaments happen and as Europe maybe puts together 1 or 2 final rosters or that kind of thing, we can start to see the similar threads happening in Europe. I'm not staying up until 3 in the morning to watch Angry Titans or whatever it is. But as far as the scenes are concerned, there is a divide right now as far as visibility. The European squads need some more visibility. They need these rosters to perform well against each other consistently. And I have my eyes on TSM right now because they've got another tournament coming up in just about a week. The Pulse Invitational, the Spike's putting it on. Immortals is there. Gen G is there. Code 7. A lot of great teams from this last weekend will be apparent there. So to see Immortals, specifically, JC Stanny, Bjor had a great weekend. Gangsta, I think, was the guy that was constantly around. Asuna. All these guys are Asuna. Shout out to the Weebs. And this squad just played a lot better, and I think that Immortals is a team to watch moving forward, and they do have some tournaments coming up as well. So I mean, aside from the guys we've hit on, final thoughts on the T1 Showdown, Pansy? Anything we didn't cover here today?
I'm glad you brought up Immortals because we definitely held them to quite a high standard because we didn't see them for a while, right? And this is the first real look back at them, and they were good. I'm happy to see them looking diligent. I like this style to it. It looked like they've synergized a fair bit. When you first saw them, it was just like, they're just a mixed team right now? It's going to be hard to see that down the line, but they've definitely come together as a collective. And, they could really be a challenger if they keep grinding. They're not quite there yet. They dipped out at a respectable point in the tournament, I think is fair to say. They didn't go for like a super deep run, but they definitely made it into a decent enough, respectable point that they can be happy with. You can take that to the org and say, hey, we're putting up numbers now. We're starting to look a lot better. So I'm happy to see how they played, and that ticks the box of are they improving to me? Yes. So that's all I had to see.
Absolutely, and Velly, I know that we've had our ups and downs as far as our relationships on the rocks now. I just want to say that after this is all over, we're gonna go out to a nice steak dinner, and I'm gonna treat you right. Okay, I mean that's just. It's one of those things that relationships, we come to these rocky parts where maybe you don't agree with my correct opinions, and that's something we're gonna have to work on as a team. So gentlemen, everyone, it's been a tremendous podcast. I'm happy we got to cover everything off in depth. We are unfortunately out of time, so I wanted to give another huge thank you to Velly. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I know they're not a big name team, or they're not under a tier 1 org. I really like Together We're Terrific. Twat. I really think those guys are special. And I don't know, for some reason, like I'm drawn to them. It's not the name. I swear to God, it's not the name. I really think that those group of players are really special. Other than that, I'm just happy to be back, baby. Everyone in the chat, you guys aren't hosting the channel and retweeting the tweets, advertising this. Y'all some fake fans, all right? So we don't want none of that around here. So make sure that advertising.
We've all been deputized
right?
as marketing executives.
Right. The viewership was nice today, so keep it up, all right? That's all I got to say.
Yeah, get the word out, ladies and gentlemen. We're having a good time over here. Pansy, final thoughts?
Anyone who's listening and not looking at chat, hit that link that Imagine has popped in there and see how wrong Moses is in live action in front of you. It's phenomenal to see. For those on YouTube, do make sure you head over to the game that was going on Ascent between TSM and T1, and then skip along to just around 20 minutes and 10 seconds. 5-4 in favor of TSM.
11:40. Watch the round, please.
Fade,
you guys,
fade to black.
Have fun.
Me later.
Have fun.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. We'll see you back here next week, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We're always having fun here. And shout out to Do Not Peek for hosting us, Daniel, and everyone behind the scenes for being flexible. I know that there was some trouble today. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everyone.